But you fit into that skin better than I expected. Honestly, you almost had me fooled.
Welcome back, Saint Shadow Society. A story was offered, a path was chosen. What you're about to hear is the result.
Wow, I am here with a blast from the past, Elizabeth Saint, who was actually in season 1. Her production company was the first to distribute my documentary, Afraid of Nothing. And I am so happy to have her back 5-6 years later because she is a woman who does everything and has a lot going on. And I'm so happy to call her a friend and to be involved in one of her more recent projects, Stories with Saints, that we'll talk about in a bit. But first, Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you again.
Oh, it's awesome. And, the world should know who you are. But anyways, just for people who are under a rock, just can you give us a quick overview of who you are? And because you are an American producer, actress, kind of a paranormal gadget person. You're an inventor. You do it all. And, just add on that a little bit for the audience so they know kind of the special person we're talking to today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if people know me at all, it would be through the TV show I was a part of, Ghosts of Shepherdstown. And my background is in electrical engineering. So it's been kind of cool to bring the tech side of me into the paranormal space. And I've been able to do that through gadgets I created for Ghosts of Shepherdstown. I've also done that in Paranormal Lockdown. And I've done that for both Steve Shippey and Steve Gonzalez on their projects as well.
Wow. And you were a model before, but then some paranormal things led you into this field. Can you talk about some of the stuff that kind of, got your interest in this field and how you went in with both feet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, my journey to, I guess, the more public side of the paranormal was rather unexpected, but I think it was definitely meant to be. Out of college, or out of high school, I should say, I went to college initially for maybe like a month, and then I did get the opportunity to do some high fashion modeling in New York City for a couple years. So I did that. I don't talk about that part of my life very often, but point being is that I went back to school actually and ended up studying electrical engineering. And that's what kind of brought me down to the DC area, which is where I still live, because I was working for the Department of Defense for a while. And even though I've had experiences with the paranormal my entire life, I would say since I was about 4 years old, it was a very private part of my life for a very long time. It wasn't something that I spoke about. I didn't talk about my day-to-day experiences. But when I moved down to DC for my government job, I had moved into this apartment down here in Virginia that it reached a point where I could not ignore anymore the things that I was experiencing. I had a lot of activity at that location, and it got to a point where I started like searching around. I didn't know anybody in the area down here. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to look for a paranormal group if that's something that exists. And mind you, this is like over 10 years ago. And I was shocked to find that there was actually a huge community, like a subculture, if you will, of people that investigated the paranormal. And I thought that was fascinating. So I reached out to this group called Maryland Paranormal Research, and they stuck out to me because they were very tech driven themselves. And everybody that was part of the team either worked for the government like me, or was contractor to the government in some way, or into science in some way. And I just thought, okay, these are my people. And I started investigating with them, both residential cases, and then we would do fun investigations for ourselves at historic locations in the area. And so that's how I was found for Ghosts of Shepherdstown, was through my paranormal team.
Wow. And this your experiences, was it the same entity, or were there different entities? Did an entity follow you to Washington, D.C.? Was it ghosts? Was it UFOs? Or are you comfortable talking about that, or should we just kind of leave that just in the background? Or
No, yeah, I can definitely talk about it. It was so when I was a kid, I had really horrible nightmares, and I guess now they call them night terrors for kids, right? But they would always coincide with, I mean, this is kind of creepy. I felt bad for my mom, feel bad for her now looking back on it. But they always coincided with sleepwalking for me. And so sometimes I would, either my mom would find me in random places of the house, or I would wake up like sitting at the edge of my bed after a really bad dream, or like staring into the mirror was probably the scariest one I experienced. But there was definitely multiple entities that I experienced growing up that would come, I guess, to visit, or whatever it was. I don't really know if I knew exactly what it was. So fast forward to moving into this apartment. It was just myself, and I had a small dog at the time. So it was the two of us living in this space. And it started out where I would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and see a figure standing in the door frame, very similar to things that I would experience as a child. But then it started to progress, where I started having dreams about this entity. And I would have experiences where I would be outside of my body as well. Like between that moment where you're awake and asleep, sometimes, and I used to do this a lot as a kid, like sometimes I started like leaving my body. And so this thing that was in this space, how it presented itself was this very disturbed man. He wore boots and a trench coat, but he would pace a lot in my closet. That's like,
quick question.
That's like I would get in dreams.
He wasn't a shadow figure. You could see kind of the features. You could see the features of this person. Yeah.
So when I'd wake in the middle of the night and see it, it would be more of a shadow figure. But in my dream state, or in my out of body, I guess, state, I would very much so see him.
Wow.
And there were two experiences that made me say to myself, I need to find out what this is or what's going on with me, because I'm not willing to accept that I'm just crazy. So there was one time where I remember I was in my dream state, but I was walking around in my apartment, and I remember being at the foot of my bed, outside of my body, and seeing this man pacing back and forth, talking to himself, and he was very angry. And I remember there was a voice inside my head saying, "Don't let him see you. Don't let him notice you." And the funniest thing happened. Is something that happened that you wouldn't think that would happen in a state like that. But I remember taking a step and my floorboard creaking. And so as soon as my floorboard creaked, he turned his head in the closet. I'll never forget the look on his face, over his shoulder. And I'm not even kidding you. I watched myself jump back into my body because I was so scared. And I remember sitting up, gasping, and like could not believe what just happened. It was terrifying.
So were you sleepwalking when the floor creaked, or was it in your mind?
No, it was in my mind. Like, I really think that, because I used to do it all the time as a kid. Like, and I know it sounds a little weird, but I would go outside of my body and like fly around, right? I would do these things as a kid.
That would scare me, that would scare me because I'd lose control, Did you have like a silver cord connecting you to your body, or how did you, and when you left your body, was there like a vibration type thing going on? What was it like when you leave your body and come back in?
Oh, this is such a good question. And it's one I've actually not really had with people, because I think that what's hard for me is in the back of my mind, I'm always going to be skeptical of my own experience, right?
Yeah.
I try to find a logical explanation because it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy. But no, I think as a kid, I was at a stage for, I would say, a long period of time where I wasn't having conversations with people about my experiences. I wasn't being told like, oh, no, that's not happening, or no, you didn't experience that. And, how we consume media and content is so different today than it was when we were kids. It just didn't exist. So I feel like a lot of my childhood, I was in my own little bubble of my experiences. And then as I got older, like sometimes that would change. I've always had really intense dreams for sure. But those things like leaving my body or flying around or moments like that, it was almost natural. It was instinctive. Like I knew that I could do these things. I had no doubt. And I think because I didn't have doubt, I had those experiences.
Can you still do it? And do you still do it?
As an adult, I have. I used to practice a lot more Qigong and Kung Fu, and I was able to do it a lot better when I did those things. But I had a couple times that were a little scary. And so I kind of stopped exploring, if you will, certain spaces. That's like, it could become a wild conversation here talking about it, but that's the best way to put it. I think that I find whether you're having a outer body experience or whether you're astral traveling or remote viewing or having a really intense dream that you swear is real, I still think that you're crossing into spaces sometimes that we don't fully understand. And there's other things there that, can be a little weird.
All right, I'm gonna have to see you at a Paracon sometime and get a couple drinks in you and get the rest out. So it's I was gonna go into the stuff you've done. I'm gonna go back to that because I'm thinking what I'm hearing you talking about. This sounds like it might be stuff that inspired you for your Stories with Saint series. So let's jump to that, because I've seen some trailers of you walking in your sleep and seeing people digging in the stuff like that. So let's just talk about Stories with Saint. This is a different type of, the Ghost of Shepherdstown, or even the films that you've been in. What was the one I was thinking of? The House in Between Two. Those are investigations. You're in. You bring your equipment, your gadgets. This is something very interesting, and thank you so much. You had me in the first story that you did called Not Our Kind, or Not My Kind.
Not My Kind.
Yeah, and it's a cool concept. So can you explain to the audience what it is and how you came up with this concept and kind of how it's been going? You recently released the first one and you have a second one coming out. And on Friday the 13th, you released Not My Kind.
I did. It was a good date for it.
Yeah.
So I guess I could back up just a little bit. A couple years ago, I found myself at a place where I felt like a bit of a disconnect with the paranormal community. And I had opened up a broadcast channel on Instagram, and I just started posting these weekly bits about tech I've created in the past or experiences that I had, location highlights. And I really started to like that. I liked the engagement that I had with people. I liked being able to share stuff with people that wanted to read it, But I wanted to do something in the community, but I found myself a bit lost because there's so much content out there. I mean, there's so many people investigating and recording, and there's so many people that everybody has such a cool, unique view on the paranormal, and they're sharing that, and I love that. But I said for myself, yes, of course, I could do that stuff too, but what was I really going to be compelled to do for myself as a passion for myself that I got excited about on a day-to-day basis? And my day job, is I own a video production company. And so you end up making a lot of content for other people, right? I love my clients to death. I love all the work and the projects that we do together, but I was really lacking that creativeness for myself, something that made me want to turn on a camera for myself and put stuff out there. And so about 8 months ago, I had this idea of starting a choose your own adventure story. And I thought it would be cool if I just did these little story bits and I put them out and people could vote on the next part and we could see where the story goes from that. So I remember I did the first one, going back to your question, based on an experience that I personally had with what I would say would be alien phenomenon. And all of my stories have an Easter egg in them somewhere about an experience I personally had, including yours. That was a real experience up until a point. It gets fiction, right? But a good part of that was an experience I had with somebody in the paranormal community when I went to a convention.
Wow.
And so all the stories do ping back to an experience I've personally had. And so, 8 months ago, I started the stories. They're broken up into 5 parts. People vote not only on the part direction, but then what genre, I guess, we go and do next for the next story. And now we're working on our 12th story now. So.
Wow. And do they ever vote and you're like, I don't really like the way they voted, but I got to do it anyways? Does that happen often?
It's happened a few times. It's happened a few times where I'm like, oh man, I really wanted to take the story this way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does happen, but it keeps things interesting for me. And I enjoy the challenge because it is quite a challenge to have to write a story, a part to a story every week. But I have found it to be such a beautiful creative outlet for me. And I love that, I see the votes grow every week and people engaging and being involved. It's just a lot of fun.
So can you promote your channel? You have like a channel where there's like 600 plus members right now where they can go in and vote and how they do that. And another question I have is, some are audio and some are video, correct? Is that true? Like some stories are audio and some are video. And I'm sorry, I'm going to throw a third question in this. Like Not My Kind, does that story end there or does that continue? Or did it end kind of in that first one?
Yeah, so great questions. So my broadcast channels are on on Instagram and Facebook. I just opened up Facebook about a month or so ago, but it's called Saint Shadow Society. That's the broadcast channel. And I do in my bio have links that go to all of these things as well. That's helpful. But you can also just read the stories at storieswithsaint.com and you can vote there as well. And you can catch up on all my past stories that we've written, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Wow.
And then each story, some stories I offer a vote to extend to make the story last longer. So there was one story called The Cleansing, and that went on for 3 stories. And that was actually based off of a real case me and my team had in Vermont. And we were sent at the time by the paranormal clergy to go cleanse that home.
Wow. And, how many more stories do you have? It's kind of a Twilight Zone feel, quite frankly, to be honest with you, when I listened to the first one. Very cool. How many?
Oh, yeah. Wait, going back to your other question that helps with your next question here.
Oh, sorry.
So we convert. So I decided at the end of last year, I said, I'm going to convert these into a narrative audio podcast where people can actually listen to the stories in full. Because I was a little bummed that once a story ended, that it wasn't actually living somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I started in January of this year, and I was like, you know what? If I'm not going to do anything else, I'm absolutely going to do this. And I'm so happy I did. I kind of held myself accountable. I guess a New Year's resolution. I guess we could view it that way. But so now it's a narrative podcast. Every story that we've completed is currently going into production to showcase a narrative form of the completed story of the 5 parts everybody voted on. And what's really neat and unique is I do have a sign-up form. Anybody can be a voice actor. So I have a list of people I've been working through to bring on board and be a character on one of the episodes. And for you, you did an amazing job on that episode of Not My Kind. It was so good. If nobody's listened to him on this episode, you need to. He plays the entity, and it really brought it to life.
I'll tell you, if there's any role I can play, it's a creepy guy that makes you uncomfortable. So that's probably the perfect casting for me. So, and you've got a great voice for a narrator. That's really cool. Yeah, they have to check it out. So,
Yeah.
say again the two places where they could go. I mean, I'm going to put it in the notes and stuff, but because this will go
Yeah.
out as a video and as an audio version of this podcast. But one more time, because there are a lot of people that are closet actors and want to do it, and this is a great format. I mean, I wanted to do it. I always hope with doing podcasts, someone would discover my voice and I'd be in some series or something. And you were the first one. So thank you.
It's happened. Yeah. You can go. So anybody can go to storieswithsaint.com. Currently, you can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. And you can also just go to storieswithsaint.com and listen to it on the website as well. And that's also where you can submit a form. In the navigation bar, there's a little link where you can go and submit to the form, fill out the form to be a character actor, voice actor for the series.
And what are the main platforms it's on? Spotify, Amazon. What's the third one I'm missing? Is it
Apple.
Apple. Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. And do you put out those like once every week, once every 2 weeks, the audio versions? What's your goal on that?
Yeah, so it's once every 3 weeks. The next episode comes out March 31st, and it'll be split into seasons. So we'll have 5 episodes a season, and that just helps me so our podcast, our narrative podcast, never catches up to the stories, because we have 12 stories kind of in the can, but every story takes 5 weeks to unfold.
And what's your team? Let's want to throw a couple bouquets to them. Who's your team that you work with, and how big is the team that you work with to get this great work done?
Yeah, so Freddie Bernstein is our amazing voice director. You worked with her to do our recording. She really brings some amazing talent out of people. Even if you've never done it before, she's great to work with.
She has you do some exercises, which makes you look really silly. So you've got some nice video for blackmailing us if you need to, like downstream. So it's really good. Yeah, she was great. And she was really, and it's both of you are, when you, I just get the experiences. It takes like a half an hour for a role. You log into like Riverside, similar to the platform I use for this, and you have your coach, which is Freddie, and you, and that you kind of go through the lines and you do a couple rounds of it. You get constructive criticism, and then it's locked and loaded. And then a couple weeks later, it's live. So it's a very fun experience. And it wasn't intimidating. Yeah. It was fun. It was good. As you found, very easy to work with, you and Freddie both on the recording.
Yeah. She does like an amazing job. And then I also brought on to the team. We have Jordan Suckley, who does the sound design. Then we also have Stuart Barefoot that does the Foley and all the sound effects, and that he does that. And Al Creedon, who's at this point a childhood friend, he did all the original music for the podcast. So
really good. Yeah, it's very well produced. Very well produced.
Yeah.
So where do you see it going? I mean, you're going to let the podcast run for a year? Do you see it going into another format, a graphic novel, a shorts on YouTube? Where do you see it evolving?
Yeah, so I do every part I do put out because they're fun for me, but I do put out a small like AI generated video that goes along with the storyline.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah. So those are fun to do and put out, and I post those on my social media every week. It's like a teaser to the next part that's about to drop. But I haven't told anybody this yet, but except for the team that I'm working with, but I am starting to do a choose your own adventure book series based on the stories that we've kind of done, and make them, going back to the question you had before, is like, does Not My Kind end there? I would love to really elaborate some of these stories, not just write them in a week. And so that's the forum I'm going to do for those. And then I would like to take a couple of these select stories and at the very least create short films from them. But we'll see how it goes. I've always said that I would love to get more into film. And I think it would be a great avenue to do that and to make one of these stories really come to life, to be able to do something like that.
You know what you should do? You should get some college film students or organic film students and have them pick stories and create it, and then you put it into like an anthology or something, with all different voices. That would be kind of cool, That's
I
just
would love that. No, it's a great idea. Producer credit to you.
yeah. Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah,
If I do that, you're getting one.
perfect.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
No, because it's just look. I did a graphic novel, and then I did like a graphic novel anthology of shorts. I had a kind of a before I did this, I had something called Heske Horror, and I only did like three
Oh my
three
gosh, I
episodes.
did not know that.
No, but it's a very small thing, indie published, and then I did like a complete amalgam of everything, and had that out as a book for a while. Nothing like what you've done, but I mean, I had the reason I did that was because I wrote a bunch of films. Some of them got optioned, but they didn't get made. So then I made a bunch of shorts because it's easier to write a shorts. And then I took some of those shorts that did pretty well in contests, and I put them into a graphic novel. I turned them into like graphic novel, and that's what I did. And it was it's funny.
That's so cool.
Yeah, this is over like 12, 15 years ago. But I did win like an IPPY award. It's very prestigious, kind of New York. It was a bronze medal. They didn't have a class for like graphic novels, but it was under horror, and I came in third place in that. But and I look at your stories and I see the same type of thing. I'll have to give me your address. I'll send you a copy of the graphic novel anthology.
Please do. I would love that. Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to collab on a graphic novel, I would love that. I think that's the whole point of all of this is I really love the community vibe it's given everything. I like having all these different people involved, and it's just really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's look, sometimes podcasts are made into movies and stuff. So there's so many places this could go, and I really love what you're doing with it. Before we go on to other things that you've worked on or things you have coming out, is there anything else you want to talk about regarding Stories with Saint? Is there anything, any announcements or anything, or just inviting people to check it out and to maybe audition as a voice?
Yeah, I would just say go to storieswithsaint.com. Everything you need is there. Like the links to the broadcast channel if you want to join the little community that we have. If you want to catch up on the stories, if you need to reach out to me, you can do that as well. I mean, I'm pretty open, and I'm just excited for where everything goes. I mean, every week we're gonna be having a story that we're working on, so I just welcome people to come and check it out. I mean, it's just a lot of fun.
Cool. Yeah. Now let's talk about you as the paranormal celebrity, the paraceleb. How does your background as an electrical engineer, how does it change the way you're both sides of the coin, right? You've had these paranormal experiences as a kid, you've done out-of-body traveling, but then you're a very logical electrical engineer working within the science realm. How did that affect you as a paranormal investigator and how you approached certain investigations? And maybe one you could talk about would be the, what was it called? The house on the, hold on one second, sorry.
Oh, the house in between two?
House in between two, yeah. That was a fun one, I thought.
Because I've had the opportunity to experiment in this field, I think, in a lot of ways that other people haven't had the opportunity to, particularly going to some of the locations and building gear in real time that is built for that location. Like that was something that I've really loved being able to do, is just experiment and been like given the opportunity to just, hey, make what you want, whatever you feel for this particular location. This is what happens here. And like, it's been really cool and had some interesting results. And I think that in this field, we have to do a lot of experimentation. I think it's extremely important. But then on the other side, I would say that I've definitely experienced things in my life that would probably make a lot of people a believer in something else. But there's always this voice in the back of my head. It's definitely the engineer, Elizabeth, that says, well, no. You could just not even be here really at all. This could be one long dream, and nothing that you experience really matters here. So the fact that you had this going on, I'm sorry, but there's probably an explanation for that. So it kind of, I've had some really beautiful experiences in my life when it comes to spirituality and the paranormal, and sometimes I feel a bit robbed of that because I have the other side to me.
Yeah, you have the devil and the angel on your shoulder, right? Whispering different things into your head, which is interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you this. So the Afraid of Nothing documentary, I never have seen a full body apparition or anything, but I did have. It was my kind of a paranormal experience I had. I'll tell you very quickly because I don't know if I ever told you in the background was. So part of that documentary was I went to a place called I think it's called the Magic Parlor in Salem. And I knew the guy because he had actually been a director and produced a drama we made together a couple of years before that called Blessed. And he would get Ouija boards from the Talking Board Historical Society that were allegedly cursed, and they would bring them to his shop, and he would like sell them. And he called me and he said, "Hey, I got this Ouija board, and I had a person come in, and he said it's Salem, they're weird, but someone came in, looked at the board in the display case, and said there's 7 demons in that Ouija board." And so naturally, he sold it to me. And so I was married at the time, and my ex-wife wouldn't let me bring it in the house, so I had it in my trunk in my car, right? And as I would drive to work, I would try to cheat at work because there's a parking lot you had to walk 1,000,000 miles, or the garage. I would cheat and go to the top. And usually I had FM on, but one day I had AM radio on, listen to sports talk radio. And as you go around the garage, I would hear this weird kind of voices coming through. And it happened like 3-4 days in a row. So finally I recorded it, and one of the guys in the film did EVPs. And then he cleansed it, and it was all this stuff that came out from the EVPs, which was like, when I look back, it was like, we're hiding me. And I thought, well, they're in the trunk, and then it was like, they said something negative about God, and I would always start every day with an affirmation about God, right? And so those EVPs are actually in the documentary. But what's even weirder was I did finally get rid of the board. One night I'm in bed. Hope my ex-wife hasn't listened to this. And I'm laying in bed, and I felt like someone punched me, not like in the gut, but the opposite. My rib cage opened, and like something almost leapt out of me, right? And I'm in bed facing my ex-wife, and I can see her eyes flutter really quickly like that. We were toward the end of our marriage. I didn't tell her about it at the time. And so, yeah. And so I always wondered, but it was real. I mean, I was awake. I could feel something come out of me. I could feel almost like my chest open and something come out of me. And it almost like it left me because I was doing daily affirmations and things like that. It was almost like I wasn't a good host. I almost felt, And for a while, I was freaked out that my soul left me. You have all these thoughts you think about, and I don't have anything beyond that story. Nothing has happened to me in the 10 years or so since that. And my wife wasn't possessed by the devil or anything, but she is kind of psychic. But that was the closest thing I had to an experience where I had really good EVPs in my car, off my car radio and the AM radio. And then I felt after I was done filming, something came out of my body and left, and so that was my weird experience on that film. So I don't know if you're going to put me on a couch and psychoanalyze me. What would you think about that?
I have so many questions. So you say that you felt like your soul left your body, right?
I was afraid. I know something. I felt something. Yeah, I felt something. I felt some energy leave my body. Like, but it was like a reverse punch out of your stomach instead of into it. Like it opened and something left.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes, we could say like, oh, it was a negative entity that was there with you, which I think happens when people are in a really dark place. It's not uncommon, I think, for certain things to attach to you, latch onto you.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's that part. But the way you were describing it also made me feel like I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny. But that potentially, like, well, maybe you're like soul sharing your body a bit. Maybe the first portion of your life that was something else, and now it's you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, because and then there a lot of change came with that or something, and because I say that only because there are people that have distinct memories of something similar from things that I've read, and they're very aware of the transition period where they left and something else came, or vice versa. And it was like a transition period in their life, because at the end of the day, we're just vessels for whatever this is. And
I don't know. I tell you, my fear is I'll go to heaven. I'll be in line, with my ticket, and it's like going to TSA, and they're like, "Okay, show us your license." I'm like, "Show us your soul." You don't have your soul. I'm looking for it. I don't have it. So.
I definitely think
there's
you
a
got
story
your
for
soul.
you right there.
I definitely think you have your soul. Yeah, I think about these moments all the time too. I'm like, it'll be a really funny joke if like I die and then I just wake up on a table and there's the bright light above me and they're like, "Oh, welcome back. You had a good trip."
Alice. It's like the end of the
Yeah.
Alice, that series. Yeah, it's all a dream. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all a dream. Or like I was just in a very long VR simulation and
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, let me know if you, whatever you think. I feel like I'm fine since then. I feel like I'm doing good stuff. But I was going through that was a weird time with making that. As you know, sometimes you make I was finding in the paranormal, it was too easy for me to get EVPs after a while, and I stopped doing it. I could like almost do it easily anywhere. I could, pull out a recording or whatever and get answers and stuff. So I stopped doing that, and then I just became the play-by-play commentator on the podcast the past 7 or 8 years. So
you know what? I will say this because you're bringing it up, and I think that I heard someone say this recently, and I completely agree, and I totally resonate with it. Is the fact that we get told all the time, like, don't investigate in your home, don't do this, don't do that. There's all these rules, even when it comes down to the spirit board, which are most of the time were created by films, not actually like there's these rules to everything, right?
Yeah.
I think the moment you say you give yourself rules, the moment you say to yourself, oh, I'm not supposed to do that, you're already letting things in. You're already lowering your vibration.
Yeah.
If you're going into it thinking that you're going to be scolded somehow for doing it a certain way, like you're already bringing yourself there. And so I wouldn't take it necessarily as a negative thing unless you felt that there was something, if you started to feel that something negative was coming through your recorder when you were communicating, like, then I have no doubt, because in your mind, you're already thinking that it's happening,
Yeah.
And I think that there's something to be said about that. I have people, like when I do sessions and stuff, you'll always get the comments like, are you in your house? You're not supposed to investigate in your house. And it's just like, where did you get this from exactly?
Yeah.
Does anybody, or are we just all echoing each other by saying, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that? But you know what? Like, my home is so peaceful because that's what I project out into the space. And I think that, I don't believe that the evil is going to get me. I think that, within all of us, there is a darkness and a light. And I think so many people sometimes are trying to fight the darkness. And I think that it's important to remember that, but we need both sides of us to exist. It's like the side that you want to bring forward that matters oftentimes. And I think if we stopped fighting these ideas so much and start to think, like, remember that you are everything that you're supposed to be. And you know what's right. You know what's wrong. Like, you don't need to be told. Yeah. I think that, if we start from a place not feeling like we're going to get scolded by everyone around us for doing certain things, like, because that's when it becomes dangerous. That, when we would have like residential cases and they'd be like, well, the last team that was here told me I had like 7 demons in my basement. And you're like, well, at this point, you probably do, because you believe it. Yeah. You believe it. So, I'm not saying don't believe it, but what I am saying is don't forget who you are and what you're capable of as a spiritual entity here,
Yeah, I've had a conversation with my co-host Kyle several times about, because the more I'm alive, everything's a myth. It's like you don't think you're going to die when you're young, then you realize it's going to happen. You think Santa Claus is real, you think the Easter Bunny is real, you think all this stuff is real, and it becomes a myth, right? And so I've always thought, like, the big thing, the purpose of death is to finally find the truth, is because there's all this stuff around you that you have to filter. And I've always felt like the big journey in life is to ultimately find the truth. Have your journey, but find the ultimate truth. And so, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that in terms of our journey here and why we're here and kind of what we're seeking?
Yeah,
I just gave you a very deep question. I'm sorry.
No, it's an important one. I think that I think there's a couple different ways I think about it. Do I think that this could potentially just be one large school for our soul? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Maybe we come into this life with like a skeletal outline of things that we're going to hit and do and people that we're going to meet and connection we already have. That's why sometimes we're really connected to some people and we're like, I remember you, old friend, but we just met. Like I think that, yes, I think that there is a path and lane where that does exist and that does happen. There's the Buddhist side of me that will say, all of it is to, better cultivate our soul.
Yeah.
I think that it's not so easily defined, though. I don't think anybody has it quite right. And I think that we can't, what would be the point of being here if we had the answers in the first place?
Yeah. What drives your curiosity? You've been on a pretty fantastic trip, in terms of the paranormal and the things that you do, and you have both sides of your brain working. You've got the experiencer and you've got the kind of scientific side. What drives your curiosity as you go from project to project and do things? What kind of, or do you even know, or do you just kind of go on autopilot on the trip? Is there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, I've always been a very curious person ever since I was a child. Absolutely. I think that that's carried into my adult life. That person has never left. And I bring that into everything that I do, right? I do, as I've gotten older, though, I've started to see a shift a bit in that I think after being a part of the community for so long, having all the experiences that I've had, the only solid takeaway that I have at this point, the only thing I know for certain is that there is something else. Whatever that else is, I don't think I can define. We have these terms like, it's a ghost and it's a negative entity and it's but I just don't think that that's accurate. And I think that what makes me curious is to just see where all the doors lead and be open and receptive to the ideas, even if it's not something that I'm comfortable with. Because I don't feel like I have any answers. I just get more questions. And I find that what I love about this community is hearing, like yourself, everybody else's stories and perspectives, because it just lets me know, like even when I go on to conventions and people tell you their experiences and stories, I just think to myself like, wow, this is an amazing catalog in my mind about all these people that have had very similar experiences. Sometimes they don't even know each other. Like there's something to that. There's something to all of this. And I find a lot of beauty in that and getting to know people in the community, hearing about others' experiences. And I think that, that's what gets me excited about this space is we might not ever know, but I think that that's the point.
Yeah, you come across to me as very calm, and like you kind of accept the journey and let your story unfold. Other people are a little more kind of maybe nervousness or anxiety drives them, but you come across as a very calm and focused and centered person who is able to process what comes and what doors you open and that you walk through. That's just my interpretation, Elizabeth. But you seem very controlled and very thoughtful in how you take your journey in life. And I think it's a great one that you've done. I know we're getting to the end of this. I just want to do a quick riff on some of the series that you've been in. Weird World Adventures. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. My good friend Mallory Mackey, she's done 2 seasons now. Season 2 was just released on Amazon, and season 1, she had come out a couple of years ago. But she brought me on as a guest in season 1. I was in 2 episodes then, and then she brought me back when she came to visit, pass through DC on one of her episodes. I was able to go out and film with her for a day, which was great. We went to she had never been to the Exorcist steps, so I took her. Wow. Yeah, and so that was and then she took me to this weird Barbie pond that I didn't know existed. And essentially, it's a person that has this pond in front of her house, and it's just like a regular home, like in DC, and she just changes the Barbie figurines around this pond. It's very weird. Hence the title Weird World Adventures. You never know where you're going to go with Mallory, but the places she finds are pretty interesting, so people should check it out. Yeah.
Wow. Now we've talked about stories with Saint. Let's talk about something that's upcoming: A Haunting on the Saginaw River, The Gray Ghost. Can you talk about that's coming out later this year? Correct.
Yeah. Steve should be probably one of my best friends, hands down. He brings me on. He's brought me on a few of his projects. Actually, I filmed with him a few times for his Patreon, but he brought me out for this documentary film a few years ago, and I'm so happy that he's finally doing it. I think that if anybody knows Steve Shippey or follows him, he's going through a really tough time right now.
Yeah.
But what keeps him going through the dark times right now, I think, of fighting cancer, unfortunately, are his projects that he just never stops working on. So he's
just
like
to throw one thing
editing
out,
like crazy.
yeah, I just throw one thing out. He did a GoFundMe, which I'll try to put a link in it, but he's got a lot of support, which is great. When you know that you're not on the battle alone, that's important.
Yeah.
And I don't know him. Was he with you on The House in Between too, or what past project did you work with him on? Yeah.
No, we had, so back when we had VidiSpace, the streaming platform, we had gotten connected then, and he was putting out a lot of different documentaries at that time. And over the years, we've just kept in touch and became closer. I've worked with him, like I said, for his Patreon content, for his documentaries. He had a fragrance line that I shot like a small commercial with him on, which was really cool. So we've just become really good friends over the years.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that is coming out, The Haunting on the Saginaw River. Is there a launch date, or is that still to be determined?
Not yet, but in the fall. Yeah.
And is there anything, if you're going to give like a quick sentence or two riff on it, what would people expect when they watch this documentary?
I think they're going to love like Steve's cinematography on the project. He showed me like this small clip the other day. It just looks really beautiful. I had a blast filming with him on the ship, in the bows of the ship, and I got to create some gear for that documentary as well, which was a lot of fun to experiment with. I did like I created like a digital Morse code for spirits to communicate with. Wow. Using different sensors on the device, because I thought that would resonate.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that'll be a lot of fun for people to see.
Now, Ghostly Gadgets, is that just another business you have? Is that a store where people can buy equipment, or is that something you just have and that you create for certain shows that you're on?
Yeah, so when I did season 2, Ghost of Shepherdstown, and season 3 and 4 of Paranormal Lockdown, I built a lot of gear behind the scenes for the shows, and particularly in Paranormal Lockdown. And out of those years where I was building a lot of gear, I started calling them Ghostly Gadgets, and I would have them refer to the devices as Ghostly Gadgets. And that was kind of my thing. I don't sell anything. I would love to eventually put a device out there, but I really want to invest the time into making it be a device that is usable in the field, but also a bit customizable, fully transparent down to like the sensors that are used in the device, because I think a lot of people don't understand what's going into their devices. And at the end of the day, they could just be really cheap parts, and they're not capturing the full spectrum of what I think sometimes they could be. So anytime I've created a device, I make sure that I'm using really high quality components. Even if it costs me like $60 to $100 just for a single component, I will do it just so I know what I'm measuring accurately, and just so I know that I'm pushing the device to the best place it could be to make sense for the community. Because what's the point? Am I going to throw something together that blinks because it detected something in a dark space? Like, sure, I could do that and put a lot of little devices out there, and people would love it because they'd go off and be like, oh, that's exciting. But I don't want that. I want it to matter and have some integrity. And no, I'm not saying that there's not people that don't do that. There are a lot of people in the field that do that and have integrity with the devices that they build. But there's also, I think, the side where that's not happening.
Is there one device you made for a show that blew your mind with the results that you got?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely been a few of them. I think for sure. Oh, it's hard to pick just one. I think that for me, what I learned with my paranormal team was we would run a lot of sensor data, right? And I think that whenever I build devices, I like to remember the fact that whenever we would see a change in the environment, right, or a shift in some of our sensors, it would always correlate sometimes with our best, like Class A EVP responses. And I love the correlation between those two things. So whenever I build a device, I find them all fascinating because I make them intelligent enough to always be actively baselining the space, which I think is huge. I think that it needs to be doing that. And then, if it goes off, it's because multiple things have happened, not just because one thing has happened. And there have been some situations where I really like to experiment with the sensors, but I also like to experiment with light because I've had a lot of like lasers and converting those into audio waves because I've had EVPs over the years where things will describe themselves as light, or they'll say that they're a light phenomenon. And I always thought that was interesting to me. So for instance, when I was filming The House in Between 2, I did create like a light sensitive box, but also a box that would tell you what wavelength, what wave of light was being received from the box itself. So if it saw some blue light in a dark room, it would glow blue, and then you would know. If it saw some red light in the room, it would glow red, and you would know. And I thought that was really cool and interesting because, well, first of all, if it didn't see it, it wouldn't light up, right? Okay. And they at that location, they have a lot of strange light phenomenon, particularly with in the kitchen. Their light goes on and off, and they've had that thing looked at by an electrician and tested, and they still have these weird things going on. So, long answer, but
good answer.
Yeah.
I have 3 short questions before we wrap up, if you're really quick.
Okay.
So one is, speaking of gadgets, are there any apps, ghost apps, or do you think they're all garbage, or are there any ghost apps that you could download on your phone that you think are worth using?
That's a really good question. Here's the thing is, I used to say like, oh, they're all garbage. And I would say that because I'm a coder myself, and I know how easy it is to code things into a program to mimic human intelligence, right?
Yep.
And so I was always concerned about that. Well, if I can't see your code, then you're probably making stuff up, or making it seem like that's what's happening. But I went through a period of time, like last year, where I was experimenting with all kinds of apps, and Paranologies had this like mobile device, Poltercom, that came loaded with all different kinds of apps on it. Jeremy Jones, who owns Paranologies, he gave us this device to use on Paranormal Lockdown. And there were some apps on there that really had me thinking. I think that there was one that was like the Executioner's Box. And what's interesting about some of these devices and some of these apps is you can't explain to me exactly. Like, I will ask a very specific question, and I will get like sometimes a sentence or 2-sentence long response with a very intelligent answer. And I've posted videos on that. And, of course, a lot of people will deny it and think that it's BS. But I think that like anything, if you view it as this thing is BSing me 99% of the time, that's fine. Maybe it is. Maybe it's really good at doing that. But you can't explain to me the 1% of the time where you get something that just defies all logic, Yeah. And I can say, I think that whatever the tool is that you're using, I still think that it could potentially be a medium to communicate with something beyond ourselves, even if it is ourselves.
No, that's great. And so another question is, I talk to people, and half the people, not half, but rough, let's just say, don't think that evil is a man-made convention. There are no such things as demons. What's your thought on evil? Is it inside man and it comes from us, or are there demons? Are there external entities that are actually evil? In all your research and what you've come across, what is your thought of good versus evil? And is it man-made, or is there an external thing kind of messing with us?
Yeah, I think it's both. I also this is a fantastic question. We could probably talk about this for an hour. But I look. I'll say this. I think that there are, like I mentioned before, there are a lot of places that I think exist within our existence here, and that we maybe not necessarily experience on a day-to-day basis, but I do think that they're there. And I think that there's lots of layers that we don't understand to those spaces. And maybe in some spaces there are demons, and maybe in some spaces there are just really negative energies. I would say absolutely. I've been to places that you could say housed something like how we would describe things like that. But at the same time, I've also found that there are a lot of misunderstood things out there as well, like that are sometimes labeled as, oh, that's demonic, or that's a demon, or that's a negative entity, when in fact, that's not the case. And I think it goes back to what I was saying before. Like, yes, we need the good and evil. Duality exists. It's important. But I think too often times we are so quick to make something that is more dark be negative, when it doesn't really have to be considered that way, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it does. It does.
Yeah.
All right. And last question is a real easy one. I think it's an easy one. What's your favorite horror movie that you've seen or that you're looking forward to seeing?
Oh, gosh. Oh man, I don't even know. I don't know if I'm a good person to answer this question. I saw that there's a lot of remakes happening that were kind of confusing to me. I'm not really sure why that's the case. I can't even think about it right now which ones, but it does seem like franchises can't end. That's fine. They don't have to, but
Yes. Scream 7, Saw 10.
yeah, exactly. What is happening there? I don't know. But no, I will be honest. I would love recommendations, because I feel like I haven't seen a really good horror film in a long time.
There is a new one out. I don't know if it's called In Tune. It's about a podcaster, and it's very much an audio experience. So you definitely want to go to the theater to see it. It's out now. Yeah, it's
Really?
yeah. And I don't know if I have the right name for it, but and I'll send it to you afterwards. I'll email it to you. But yeah, I was almost tempted to go today to watch it. But yeah,
It seems ironic.
yeah, it's very much kind of an audio focused versus visual type of horror movie, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, that's one that I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
I'll check that out. Yeah, there we go.
Cool. Hey, so thank you so much, Elizabeth, for your time. I know we're going up to an hour, and I lied to you and told you it'd be like 30 to 45 minutes or whatever, but never trust me again. But anyways, I've enjoyed the conversation. Is there any last tidbit of where people can follow you, and whether on YouTube or anywhere that people can follow you and your goings on, that you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, absolutely. Just go to storieswithsaint.com. You can also go to elizabethsaint.com, although it's not really updated that much. You can follow me on Instagram at elizabethsaint_, on Facebook at official Elizabeth Saint. And yeah, I'll be around.
Excellent. Yeah, cool. And we look forward to seeing you again. So, yeah. Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for having me and your inaugural episode, Not My Kind. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.